This time on episode 506 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we talk the 2024 Disney Plus show X-Men 97, particularly Season 1, Episode 5, Remember It.
I'm Stephen John Drew from the official GonnaGeek.com show, a weekly geek news podcast that is a part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other awesome geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Raised on X-Men, empowered by the Avengers, strengthened by the Defenders, webbed by Spider-Man, adopted by the Fantastic Four, and forged by S.H.I.E.L.D. Stand by for your Marvel debriefing.
And now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Agent Lauren.
I'm Agent Michelle.
And I'm producer of the show, Director SP. Welcome to the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. This show is recorded on Saturday, April 13th, 2024, live from the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. studios and broadcast Genosha-wide. Come and join our live chat as we record. And this week, we got a doozy.
Remember It. Team members hit Genosha as UN honorees, while press event risk exposing the team's dirty laundry.
Lauren, what's your first thoughts?
My heart.
Yeah.
Just my heart.
All the feels. As far as the importance of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which allegedly this is a part of, I will put this on par with Infinity War. We're that good. Michelle, what'd you think?
This episode has it all. Love, drama, dancing, fight, and heartache.
And not only dancing, but dancing in midair.
That was cool.
I mean, is there any other way to do it?
After seeing that, like all my school dances and all my work functions and everything, it's like, doesn't hold a candle. That was where it was at. But it was in Genosha, so we got Genosha. It was recognized by the UN. It was part of a country, and they were just standing things up. And Michelle, we got a wondrous look at the island.
Yeah, Genosha got a glow up. We've got an active city. We've, shops and stalls and ice cream and people going along streets, having a good time, talking, singing, dancing, just having a good old time, and it's become a regular, beautiful city in place.
Music was spectacular. It really helped set the scene. You had the wondrous, island music, and then the just wonderful music, and then you had all the characters.
Were so many cameos. I was so excited. I mean, the big one for me was Pixie. She's my favorite of the modern X-Men characters. But then we also had Glob Herman, who is a new X-Men from Grant Morrison character who has continued over to this day. I'll talk a bit more about Grant Morrison later. But we also have Boom Boom and Dazzler and Marrow and Exodus and just so many. I was so excited and happy. Even if we don't hear them speak, they're there.
What'd you think about the music, Lauren?
Okay, so the actual soundtrack, fantastic. But then during that, floating dance scene in the actual mutant ball, I was like, this really sounds like Ace of Base. I went and looked up on IMDb looking for trivia, and sure enough, it is in fact Ace of Base.
Nice. I didn't have that called until I saw the show notes when you put it in there a couple of days ago, and I was like, wow, that is Ace of Base. That's awesome. I've seen this episode a few times. I don't know. How many times did you guys watch the episode?
Just one.
Once.
My heart.
I know. I actually wanted to go from watching the X-Men to watching Bad Batch. I just shut the TV off. I was like, whoa, this is so much.
Look, I've been through a lot this week. I'm a wrestling fan, and a lot went on in the past 7 days of wrestling, and it's been a roller coaster. And at that point, I was just like, my heart can't handle any more just dramatic stuff right now. I need to just kind of relax and process.
Yes, definitely a lot of process on it. Let's reel it back just a second. So we did get X-Men involved in this from two different perspectives. You had a group still at the mansion, and you had a group that was traveling out to Genosha, and we actually see our wayward X-Men that left. She was part of Genosha, right?
Yeah, Madilyn Pryor got a job real quick. I mean, they wanted an X-Men, so they got the spare one.
I guess it helps if you have Jean's resume. So,
or Marvel Girl's resume.
I mean, there's so much technically.
If you've just been following the X-Men, you haven't been immersed in the Marvel comic universe. That comment kind of came out of nowhere. The reporter asking Scott about Marvel Girl, which refers to Jean. Actually, it refers to Rachel, doesn't it?
No, Jean was the one to use Marvel Girl in her first, like when she first joined X-Men.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a deep cut. And okay, it was the first time that I remember it being referred to in either X-Men 92 or X-Men 97. Yeah. But then we get this weird psychedelic realm thing going on between Madilyn and Jean.
Okay, I said I was going to mention Grant Morrison again. When I was getting back into reading comics in the early 2000s, one of the first ones I picked up was Grant Morrison's new X-Men run. And there's a lot of elements of that are making their way into this, which, you know, makes sense. The original show was based on a lot of the comic book storylines, and it makes sense that the new one would be bringing in elements of, you know, the comics. So in the comics, it's Emma Frost who's having the psychic affair, I guess, with Scott. Here, it's Madilyn. I think that works better for the show, considering that we've had a lot more time with her than we have with Emma, even in just all the combined time that she had in X-Men 92. And the stuff that happens with Genosha a little later in the episode, it's not a one-to-one adaptation, but again, right at the cusp of Genosha joining the UN in the Grant Morrison run, it ends up destroyed, and it's heartbreaking here, and it was gut-wrenching there.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Let's back up to Emma Frost for a second. When that whole thing happened between Scott and Jean and Madilyn, Emma seemed to indicate that she was more than just aware of what was going on. Like, she was almost a participant in the whole thing, too. So I'm not sure if that was just a nod to the comic or if she actually was present during that joining.
Emma's just a messy bee who loves drama.
Mm-hmm. And then you also, in that same room, you had Mgneto, who is now being asked to be the leader of everything, or chancellor, or whatever it is. Right, Michelle?
Yes, he now has to be the face of Xavier's dream, mixed with a little bit of his own aims, but it's expected of him to want mutants to share the earth with humans, just as Charles wanted.
Got a thought about that, and I've said it before, like, what amount of this is Magneto's plan? Like, what is he scheming? And what of this is true? To be honest with you, I don't know. And that's what makes it so exciting for me to watch this, is like, okay, what exactly is going on with Magneto? Because I could see him as the ultimate evil, sinister bad guy. And I can also see him as the reformed owner of, as you put it, Xavier's dream. So I don't know.
I keep saying it every week. Magneto was right.
And there was actually a sign in the episode that said Magneto was right.
I yelled when I saw it.
Yeah. So also we get Cable back, and we get Cable with Madilyn. He calls her mom and he's like, turn off the music. And for a while, I've watched it like 3 times. And every time I watch it, it's like, what does the music have to do with what happens? Like, is the music playing really what causes what happens? I don't think so. I think he was just saying turn off the music because there's explosions going on and you can't hear it because of the music. That's what I think.
That's it exactly.
Okay. But Cable does make a presence. I think it's more than just him coming in. I don't think it was throwaway. I think him being there means something that we're going to find out later in another episode. Maybe next week, maybe 2 episodes from now. I don't know. But I think the Cable theme is the plot there. Actually, it means a lot, and we're just not seeing it.
Well, we noticed that Jean and Madilyn was having, like, I don't know, like their nose were bleeding and such. Yeah. And I wonder if it's because Nathan was there. I know Nathan is Madilyn's child, but there's still a psychic connection between Madilyn and Jean. And I just wonder if that was part of it.
I don't know, right? It could be. They were having, I didn't know if this was the fact that the 2 needed to be rejoined into 1. I have no idea.
That goes into so much of like storytelling that I love about at what point does a clone become their own person, especially if it's, like Madilyn and Jean, where it's a full-grown adult. Oh, it's just a story trope that I love. And here we have, for all that Madilyn is kind of looked at as the spare, like the bud that was pruned off of Jean Grey. When Nathan calls her mom, it's a huge reminder that no, she lived her own distinct life for at least a while. This is her son. She is the one who carried him, birthed him, and lost him.
And so does Scott. And that comes out too, where he's mourning the loss of his son.
Ooh, that was tough to watch during that interview where he's already trying to hold it together and be a good PR face. And at that point, it's what causes him to kind of lose it, where they're like, well, it says here that she had a son and we haven't seen a baby and you just said there's no son. And he's like, I literally can't explain it because you're a normal person who doesn't go through the weird stuff that we go through by virtue of being X-Men. And everyone says that we're weird, so they treat us weird. And that has consequences down the line, like into separate timelines down the line. So how are you supposed to explain to just a regular non-mutant person, hey, my son got kidnapped by this immortal sort of mutant that has a fascination with my family and infected with this techno-organic virus that doesn't really exist in our timeline yet, but we had to take him to the future to be cured. How do you explain that to someone and not sound just
bonkers?
Like you need to go away for a grippy socks vacation.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so out there. When you first start watching this sort of stuff, it doesn't make all that much sense, but then you get into it and you expect the weirdness, right? You expect this sort of stuff, but even then it's like, I can't explain it. You had some problems explaining it too, and Scott certainly can't explain it to the reporter. Which, getting back to Scott and Jean, you have the kiss between Logan and Jean in here. None of us have it in the notes, but I think that's also not to be thrown away. Logan's taken the high road this entire season so far, and I gotta hand it to him. He's handling it with class, but it's still got to be tearing him apart.
Between the Logan, Jean, Madilyn, Scott drama and the Gambit, Magneto, Rogue drama, I'm watching and I'm like, this is why polycules are a thing if you are so inclined. Personally, I have lost patience with love triangles the older I get, and the older I get, I'm more like, just everyone hook up. I realize this isn't a perfect solution in real life, but it's fiction. We can make characters do whatever we want. But if they did that, there would be less drama, and there was so much drama here on all sides with that.
Gambit took the high road as well. He's like, look, you can't touch me, you can touch him. I've seen it. I think actually they had the conversation before he saw it. But you will be friends. You go with him. That's fine. And she's been asked to be his queen, basically, Chancellor Queen, I don't know, whatever, the dual ruler of X-Men and Genosha. And it's because of that I think part of this is all a plan by Magneto to get rid of Gambit, which ultimately happens. But it happens in such a spectacular style. We've been dancing around it all episode. There was this mega attack by this super sentinel that comes in and just starts mailing everything. Everything's been just wasted, right, Michelle?
Exactly. We get this sentinel who has other sentinels with it, and they just are not out to destroy the town. They are out to kill, and they do. Many mutants fall by their, hands. That beam is just devastating. And then you've got, those who are trying to defend, trying to protect others, trying to get them to a safe space. But of course, the X-Men have to step up, and we get a sequence. It's interesting how this Mega Sentinel was identifying what we call Omega mutants, the ones that are obviously powerful, like Magneto, and overlooking, just wanting to kill all the others. But when it comes to, Magneto is looking at Leech. Leech said earlier that Magneto wouldn't let him feel scared again. And so Magneto's doing everything he can to protect him. He goes and he protects Rogue and Gambit. I don't think Magneto wanted to get rid of Gambit at all. I think that's reading too much into it. But then it seems like Magneto's gone, but there's no body. So comic book rules state that Magneto is most likely still alive. But that's not the case with Gambit. Gambit comes along. We should have seen how he can charge other items, because we saw that in the first episode, how he's charging charging Wolverine's claws and everything. But we dismiss him as the swamp rat who charges cards and flips them and everything. But then he gets stabbed and lifted, and the Mega Sentinel just going to ignore it, and Gambit grabs the part of it and shows just how powerful he is by charging that entire Mega Sentinel and explodes it. And we get the tragic death that made us cry.
Oof, Rogue crying at the end because she told Gambit the story of how she and Magneto originally hooked up after she ran away from home. And she had that, beautiful dance with Magneto. But she came to the conclusion that while being Magneto's queen would be kind of a nice dream, that's not where her heart was. She wanted to be with Gambit, with all the challenges involved that entailed, just in time for Gambit to die. And then finally we see her touching him, but it's because he's dead. I was just so upset.
And her dialogue, I can't feel you. I can't feel you. Wow. Very probably.
That was heartbreaking.
I think that was the last words of the last dialogue of the episode before it went black. Yeah. And after that happened, I don't think I've ever been affected like this by an anime at all, or a cartoon or anything. That was just so powerful. Like I said, I wanted to do other things. And I was just like, I'm just going to go sit down and think. It was that powerful. Probably the most impactful thing that has happened to the MCU since 2008. And that includes Endgame. This is on par, like I said, with Infinity War, at least, as its importance and how serious it is and how many it affected. This was not just the X-Men. This was not just a couple of characters. This was the entirety of mutants that was affected. And we'll see, even they even brought the call out for Callisto in the middle of the episode as well, right?
Oof.
So this is everything. This is you get all the characters either there at Genosha or mentioned or over at the mansion. This was the entirety of everything that we've seen in X-Men the Animated Series and now. So the world building was very big and very strong, which I'm a huge fan of, and they did it all within the confines of give or take a half an hour episode.
37 minutes, I checked.
It was just wow. It was wow. So we'll be talking about this for a long time. I don't know where everybody goes from here. I actually even think this was more impactful than the Professor Xavier death.
I have theories.
Yeah.
It's connected with the Grant Morrison comics, so therefore it could be kind of spoilery. But if you've read those comics, you might know where I'm going with this. There's also a question of, if they're using that, are they going to use elements from any of the other storylines down the line? And I think they might, but I don't think they might this season. We know they've been renewed for another season, so we'll see if that theory's correct at any point there. You might know what I'm talking about without talking about it. You might not. Again, hit me up on social media, on Discord, wherever, if you want to talk and confirm if you're thinking what I'm thinking.
We're only halfway through the season, too. We got another 5 episodes left, and we've gotten this. Wow. All right. Unfortunately, due to time, we have to move on. Let's talk about the voice actors that we were able to see for the first time.
Okay, so I'm, again, not naming voice actors who have showed up previously, but I don't think I mentioned Donna J. Fulks, who showed up here as Trish Trilby. The character has popped up for like a sentence in a previous episode here. She's doing that interview. The actress is also in Doom Patrol. Adam Huff came back as Nightcrawler. He was the OG Nightcrawler from the 92 cartoon. He's also in Assassin's Creed 3. He's had a really fantastic career in the past, 25 years. Chris Potter came in as Cable. I'm like, why is that name familiar? I go back and check. He was the original Gambit voice. And Martha Marion as Emma Frost and Moira McTaggart. She's been in a lot of stuff, just kind of one-off parts here and there, but on every show. She is probably most notable for being in Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2. And again, that's only counting the actual named characters who had dialogue that we saw. There's a bunch of really good background voice actors that show up. If you're curious, check IMDb. Once again, I am just so excited with the quality of the voice acting.
One of the things we've been talking about pretty much since the second episode is the fact that the intros have been changing from episode to episode. I paid close attention to the intro for this one the very first time that I saw it. And from that, the only thing that I could take on my very first watch was that we were going to get Nightcrawler, aka Kurt. It was what you reminded me of because of the voice acting, and Gambit. It was going to have something to do with them because of the scenes that you get to see after the character card intros. But there was nothing different that I saw in the character card intros between last time and this time. Not to say that there wasn't, but I was looking at that, and then I was looking at the scenes, and then obviously it was going to have something to do with the two of them, and it did. Kurt was part of the team that was fighting as Nightcrawler of the transport, the teleportation, and then, of course, Gambit with his huge sacrifice. And just one last hit on that one. I did not get the title of the episode until my second watch when I heard Gambit say the name's Gambit. Remember it.
Right.
So I was like, that's where this is coming from. Remember it. Remember Gambit. And the title was so subtle because it doesn't say remember Gambit. It's remember it. Because that's what he said. So. All right. I have a question for everybody since we're talking about Gambit and his meaningful, and I want to stress meaningful, not senseless or meaningless, deaths in TVs and movies. And I was thinking, what are some equivalents? What are some big, huge sacrifices that were made? And I've got a list. Some are on par, some aren't as meaningful, I would think. And I'm sure you have your own, but you could stop me at any time. The first one that came to mind right away was Spock from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. His sacrifice was sacrificing for the many versus the one. That was an ongoing thing of that. I will also throw in Tony Stark in his sacrifice at Endgame, where he got the gauntlet and did the what do you call it? Snap. He did the snap, and then because of the radiation, he passed away after that. And along those same lines with Marvel, I will put Phil Coulson in the Avengers. His sacrifice meant a lot for that. And then moving on to something else that Michelle and I have podcasted on over on Starling Tribune, I'm going to throw in Oliver Queen for Crisis. Michelle, what do you think about that one?
That's a good one. I was not expecting him to pass on. So that was a shocking moment.
Right. And then I'll throw in Darth Vader from The Return of the Jedi as little Anakin Skywalker returns to the good side of the Force to get rid of the Emperor. So I don't know what y'all think about that one, but I threw that one in there.
The one that I keep thinking of, actually, there's several in the series over the course of the series, and they're all just heartbreaking. The show Farscape. It's one of my favorites. There are several characters who do the heroic sacrifice thing. I want people to watch it, so I won't spoil it, but there's 4 that I could think of off the top of my head. 5 if you count ships.
Okay. Talking about ships and people, Russell Case from Independence Day. Up yours, right? Harry Stamper from Armageddon. I mean, no matter what you think of that. I will also say Captain John Miller in Saving Private Ryan. Other notable deaths that I thought of that we've seen: Jenny in Forrest Gump, Mr. Hooper in Sesame Street, Leo McGarry in The West Wing, Debbie Wolowitz in The Big Bang Theory, Goose from Top Gun. You might argue that definitely more of a senseless death because it was a training accident and stuff like that. But Goose in there, and Dobby and Fred Weasley from Harry Potter.
There's also the entire main cast of Rogue One.
Yeah, yeah. I'll give you that. Probably, but I think it was meaningless and senseless when it comes down to it. But it was meaningful because they were able to get the plans. So I don't have a really good relationship with that movie.
Oh, it's like my second favorite Star Wars movie.
I know. Everybody loves it but me. So, yeah, okay. I'll allow it. Michelle, can you think of anything else?
Well, I guess we have to have the Black Widow debate because I would not just brush her death under the rug. I mean, she makes a sacrifice, a knowing sacrifice, and she deserves to be on this list.
I would agree with you. My mistake for not compiling it, but that's why we have this quorum, to make sure that we don't leave out stuff like that. All right. Anything else before we move on? Anyone else?
I mean, I think we could be here all day if we wanted to talk about our favorite heroic sacrifices, and then I'm going to cry. So
I know. I would argue that Jack Dawson from Titanic that's on my list is more meaningless and senseless because we all know there was more space on that door for him than, yeah. Okay. So that's it. If you, audience, have anybody, any character death that is meaningful that we missed, we would love to hear it from you. And Michelle, how would they get a hold of us?
You can find us on our website, legendsofshield.com. You can call us on our voicemail line, 844-THE-BUS-1. That's 844-843-2871. You can join our Discord server at gonnageek.com/Discord. And remember, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a proud member of the gonnageek.com network.
All right, last thoughts, Lauren.
Oof. Well, I'm going to send my therapy bill to the showrunners of X-Men 97.
Michelle.
I'll be over here in the corner crying for a week.
Mm-hmm. And definitely from my point of view, it's not the X-Men unless you blow up an island, kill most people on the planet, or almost end the universe. Next time, we're going to be talking about X-Men 97, episode 6, season 1. So until next time, I'm SB.
I'm Agent Lauren.
And I'm Agent Michelle.
Think we're going to get a Cajun funeral?
Oh, that'd be cool if we had like the band.
Mm-hmm. Like at Mardi Gras?
Yeah. Well, it's the whole jazz funeral thing.
Yeah.
I don't think we will, though.
Yeah. I just hope they keep this death meaningful and don't do any timey-wimey stuff.
It's X-Men. There's always timey-wimey stuff.
Thank you for listening. The intro music heard on this podcast is Great Marvels of the World by Lynn Publishing, found on pon5.com. The outro music heard on this podcast is Cinematic Trailer by Ed Records, found on audiojungle.net. Other transitional music on this podcast is found on incompetech.com, audiojungle.net, and pon5.com. For more information about this podcast, please visit legendsofshield.com. Excelsior!
Did y'all see the clips?
Oh,
Yeah,
the partial bit that we got here. Yeah.
I
It
did.
is
Got totality.
Yeah.
nice.
Once you've experienced totality, it's like, yeah, I want to do it again.
God, the temperature dropped so quickly.
There's a bunch of people thinking about going to Iceland in 2026 now.
Huh.
Because Reykjavik will be on the edge. So it won't be it won't be like 4 or 5 minutes, but it'll be totality for a little bit. And then in 2028, there's one in Australia that's going across the entire continent from west to east. I don't know if any cities get hit along the path. And then after that, it's just a crapshoot. There is the one, I believe, that's going to hit Texas in 2025 or 2040.
2045, I know, is Denver should be in the path of that one. So
Denver on down towards Houston area, basically. Yeah. I don't know if I'll be alive then, but if I am, I will be traveling to get into the path. And I got to experience with my granddaughter, who, if she is alive in 2099, will be able to experience it here in Ohio again, if she's still in Ohio.
Yeah.
But at 4 months old, she's not going to remember it. So,
yeah.
Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is copyright 2013 through 2024.